My fellow book lovers, let's talk about all the books that I read in February, shall we? I didn't have the best reading month in February, but that's okay. I read 8 books, right? 8 books, yes. And the month didn't start out great. I gave out like a lot of 2 stars, and then at the end of the month I ended it with several good books in general, so that's exciting. But yes, I don't have any stats for this month because I really got lazy with tracking like all the pages that I was reading. So let's just talk about the books. I have a stack of ones that I would recommend and a stack of ones that I wouldn't recommend. So let's start with the ones that I don't recommend, that I personally didn't like very much, and yeah, we'll go from there. The first book that I finished in February was my family book club book, and that is The Paper Palace by Miranda Cowley Heller. So this one is pretty long, and it was a pick for Reese's book club, and I didn't love it very much, but some of my family members did actually enjoy it. I just don't think this was for me at all. Like, it's historical fiction and it's a very heavy book dealing with a lot of trauma and triggering things that can be hard to read for some, and like I didn't have a hard time reading it. It was just not my type of book, you know. I didn't enjoy it very much. The writing style was very wordy and clunky. I couldn't really care too much about the plot or the characters. Very family driven, lots of drama. Like, it can be a beautiful book for some people, but it just didn't work for me. I was really bored, and I think it's just because it's not my type of book. So like, nothing objectively against this book, I just personally don't favor it. So I gave it 2 stars, but like I said, some people in my family, when we read it for book club, did enjoy it. So like, if it sounds interesting to you, then definitely check it out, but I'm not personally recommending it. Some other ones that I'm not personally going to recommend to you are ones that I was actually really excited for. One of them was a 5-star prediction, and that is 5 Total Strangers by Natalie D. Richards. So I did predict this to be 5 stars because it is a thriller, and it just got everything that I know that I really like in thrillers. There's a road trip, and there's a snowstorm, and there's suspicious strangers. Like, the main character gets caught in the middle of a lot of sketchy things with these people that she's forced to take a ride with to get home from the airport, but there's a snowstorm, so it's like really dangerous. It was pretty interesting, but the payoff wasn't great for me, and I was disappointed with a lot of the things that this book did. I was told, or like I heard before I started it, that it gave very much like No Exit by Taylor Adams vibes, and that's my favorite thriller. So I thought this was gonna be like really great. I didn't think it would have the ability to completely surpass it, because like that's a lot to ask. Anyway, it's like, I don't know, maybe I do recommend it because it's like, it's really fun and interesting. Still only gave it 2 stars, maybe because I did have high expectations for it. It fell flat for me because I know it could have done so much better. It could have gone a different way, and it could have made it more insane and interesting. And I think a lot of the time it got too hung up on describing things that were happening to them that weren't very interesting points for the story, like losing control on the highway because of the snow. There were so many scenes that happened, and that was just not interesting. That didn't keep me like on my toes, like, oh gosh, are they gonna crash? Like, oh, they're like, I don't know, like, it was just, they were talking about so many pile-ups on the road because of the snow so many times. Like, we get it, but like, what's the suspicious stuff happening like inside the car with the people, you know, with the strangers? It didn't really do what I wanted it to. So only 2 stars, but I guess maybe still I recommend it, but also kind of not really. It's up to you, I guess. Also within that same kind of vein, another Natalie D. Richards that I read is called 6 Months Later. This one's a little bit longer, so the ending like dragged a lot for me, and I lost complete interest by like the 75% mark. When I started it, I thought like, oh, it has potential. Like, this one also has a very interesting premise of a girl who falls asleep in study hall and then wakes up 6 months later, and her life is like completely different. She has like everything she could ever want, except her best friend is now not talking to her, but like, she's dating the most popular guy in school. She's on track for valedictorian. She just doesn't know what happened to the last 6 months of her life. So there's a mystery there. but it was boring. Again, like the premise was really cool. I just don't think the execution was great, so this was another 2 stars. Next, I didn't love or hate this book, but I was very surprised at how I felt about it because it's very, very hyped. So I do think it's an overhyped book, and some people might get mad at me for saying this, but I don't care. And I don't have the physical copy, so here it is. I read The Spanish Love Deception for Janelle and I's book club. It is a slow burn romance, so it's like almost 500 pages. It's supposed to take place in New York at first, and then they go to Spain for Lena's sister's wedding. The love interest, what's his name, Aaron, he signs himself up to be Lena's date to the wedding because she can't find one. So they like fake date in Spain to show Lena's family that she's in a strong relationship. She wants her family to think that she's got her life on track, but it's also like a workplace romance, and it's also enemies to lovers and slow burn. So it's like got all these things, and I think that was just like too much overload for me. And I didn't love the characters. I think that they were very boring and not well-rounded. They were flat and cringy and annoying. Because of that, because I didn't fall in love with the characters, I couldn't appreciate anything else in the story, and it was just so long, so long, and I don't like that. Ended up giving it 3 stars, and I feel like that's generous. Like, I don't know, like this is so overhyped in my opinion. Aaron Blackford is just like so typical hot guy who's super rich, but he's also very hardworking. So like he's the whole package, and he's got a 6-pack and just like all these things, and I'm tired of these picture perfect male protagonists. It's old, it's boring. And then I didn't love Lena either. I found her to be a little annoying and oblivious. And then also the setting wasn't immersive. Like, it didn't feel like we were in Spain. There was nothing atmospheric about this book, and they were too angsty, very teenage-like for my liking. So yeah, just all of those things, and I gave it a generous 3 stars because I don't know, like I didn't like it. So that's a shame. But that is the last one of like the section that I wouldn't necessarily recommend. But now let's talk about some of the books that I really did like this month in February. First, I'll start with saying The Dazzling Heights by Katherine McGee. This is the 2nd book in the 1000th Floor series. I read that one, the first one, like early last year, and I finally picked this one up like a whole year later because I really liked the first one. The world is so fun and interesting. It's like a YA sci-fi dystopian novel about this really tall tower, but now there's 2 in the 2nd book. But the main point of it is like there's this really tall building that has 1,000 floors, and it gives off Gossip Girl vibes because the people who live in the tower, depending on what level they live on, correlates to like their class in society. So like the 1000th floor people are like celebrities, really rich and stuff, and then the people on the lower floors are, you know, not, and then middle class people, you know, whatever. So yeah, I like the Gossip Girl vibes, and I like when my sci-fi is young adult because it makes it really easy to understand and pick up on the world building. That's what I really appreciate about this book. I love that there's so many different characters and storylines that you follow, so it's never like a dull moment. There's a lot of characters, maybe like 7 or so, and like each chapter is a different person, and it starts with like their name in the chapter. So then you read like everything that's going on with that person, and then the next chapter is following a different person. So yeah, it's really a fun time, and I gave the 2nd book 4 stars, but like I don't really have any bad things to say about it. I really loved it. But now on the flip side, with another sci-fi but not young adult, is Recursion by Blake Crouch. This one was still also like really good for me. It's supposed to be confusing, but sometimes it's like so confusing that I feel dumb and I can't understand it when I'm reading it. I don't think that's a fault at all in this book because, you know, you're just supposed to think a little bit about what's happening, and also it's not real, it's not reality, so it's also hard for your brain to wrap around that fact that it's not the world we live in. So this one I also gave 4 stars, and I would recommend it. Do I know how to explain this book to you? Probably not very well. I could try. There's 2 main characters. 1, his name is Barry, and he's a cop. And then 2 is Helena, and she's a neuroscientist. Helena creates this technology to help civilians, help people relive precious memories, to preserve them. And so she creates this technology that ends up being super dangerous. Sometimes like people use it to go back in time to stop a tragic event from happening, but then the idea of cause and effect runs rampant and things go bad, and then there's Barry trying to investigate it all, and then it's the end of the world, and then they try to save the world, and then I don't even know. It's really good and very interesting concept, but it's very hard to explain. So like you could read the synopsis, does a good job at explaining, but also like keeps you wondering what is actually happening. And then next, my other book club pick for Janelle and I's book club was Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell, and I really liked this one. This is a thriller. Gave this 4.5 stars just because I couldn't give it like a full 5 stars, but it definitely like was close, obviously, with being a 4.5. So this one is following a woman named Laurel whose daughter goes missing, and then 10 years later they find her and she's dead. And then Laurel is trying to move on with her life. She like one day meets this man named Floyd, and she starts to have this romantic connection to him. And then she meets Floyd's daughters, and his youngest daughter, Poppy, who's 9 years old, looks like almost identical to Laurel's daughter who went missing and died. There's this whole mystery of like what happened to Laurel's daughter, and like that's basically it. Where did Ellie go? Did she run away from home as the police have long suspected, or did something more sinister happen? The twists and turns in here were so phenomenal and so riveting that I had such a great time with it. I couldn't give it any less than 4.5 stars. So I definitely recommend this one if you're looking for a creepy thriller. It's like psychological and disturbing, you know, intense, and keeps you on your toes. So yeah, this one was really fun. There is a live show for this one and also for the Spanish Love Deception for Janelle and I's book club. If you don't know about all that, our book club's called the Coffee Break Book Club, and you can find us on Instagram. And then we also do YouTube live shows talking about our 2 picks that we have every single month. And then finally, the last book that was definitely my favorite book of the month. This will come as no surprise to a lot of you because this is one that is very hyped, that I actually did love and can equally agree with the rest of the world about it, and that is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. You guys are right, this one is the best so far. I loved this book so much. This was my other family book club book that we read. Wow, it was so good. I don't think I have to say much about this because everyone and their mother is always talking about this book. Colleen Hoover is a genius. I think this is my favorite one by her. So yeah, if you haven't read this book yet, you need to read it. It's really good. It did make me cry. Like a little bit. I shed a tear a little bit. I wish I was able to like bawl my eyes out, but I don't know, I was able to hold it in for some reason. But it did give me like a little tear. One little part in the epilogue just got me good. Anyway, so yeah, this is really good, and I cannot wait for the next one that's coming out called It Starts With Us. I've been trying to come up with like theories about it. I don't know, maybe there's a synopsis for it already or something, but obviously didn't want to try and look to find out what that book is about without finishing this, just in case of spoilers. Yeah, I'm excited for the next one to come out to continue whatever the heck is happening here. Please read this one if you haven't already. It's so good. Those are the 8 books that I read in February. So February is officially wrapped up and we're moving on into March, and hopefully I can read more than 8 books. That is going to be it for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate all your support, and I will see you guys in my next video.